Welcome to Lawyers Who Learn, where we explore how attorneys' engagement and lifelong learning fuels their growth. Join us to uncover these journeys and gain insights for your legal career.
Ian Nelson, welcome to Lawyers Who Learn. Thank you for coming into, what is it, the den of the beast, or like something like, to some degree, in some world in my head, I'm like, oh, we're competitors, even though you're in a class of your own. And I'm like, wow, look at him. He's okay coming on a Lawline podcast to telling me all his secrets. That's the intention, I assume, right?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. We're buddies first, David. We're buddies first.
No, and you really, you're everybody who touches or connects with you realize what a great guy you are. And we have a lot of fun together. As I said to you, I had a dream and an idea to connect more with really great leaders in professional development, in lawyers, in legal tech, to learn more about how they learn. Because I think one thing me and you will agree with, I don't know, let's call it 2 to 5% of your learning happens in a classroom, online, in training, and then the rest happens in the real world, actually doing and experiencing. And so the purpose of this podcast is to uncover how people learn in the real world beyond the CLE course, beyond the Hotshot course, and how they've done that. And so that's what we're going to do with you today.
Great.
You were a lawyer first. I'm going to just quickly share your timeline of your career, and then we'll see where we end up.
Sure.
So you started your career, at least your legal career, in the 90s and early 2000s at Kramer Levin, working in corporate and M&A. And then around, I can't read my own handwriting here, but around the 2000s, in 2013, you ended up moving to Practical Law Company, PLC, which I've known about, but I want to dive into there to help, obviously, with the learning component. There is where you actually met Chris Wedgeworth, which is your co-founder. Wedgeworth, which actually, I've seen you so many times. His name never comes up, so I'm curious to learn more about him, who ended up being your co-founder for Hotshot Legal. And then I think around 2012 or 13 or so is when you started Hotshot Legal.
Just Hotshot.
And Hotshot, not legal. There's no legal. Sorry.
Yeah, it's in the domain. That's a whole other story. Hotshot.
Okay, just Hotshot. I'll stop saying that.
Just Hotshot.
Because you can do training not beyond legal. Absolutely.
True. Absolutely.
And what you put as the main thing, or what ChatGPT told me, your goal was to bridge the gap between the real world and the practical. And that's what we were talking about just now. So just wanted to cover, anything I missed? I think I got everything pretty much.
You got it. Yep, you got it.
Cool.
Well done.
Let's start with this question before we dive into this, because you've done a lot of interviews, you speak a lot, you're out there. Is there anything that you wish somebody asked you or you talked more about that you don't when it comes to how you've learned and grown in your career, besides just diving right into how AI is changing everything and how you're really focused on the taxonomy and the design of creating courses, but something more focused on like your learning and growth?
The rumors are true. You ask good questions, David. So right off the bat, here we go.
Glad it's that rumor. I got nervous for a second.
When I go speak, I often like to talk about whether it's the customer or trends in the market, not so much about me and the company. So I'll have to break out of that a bit for this conversation. I think the questions I always enjoy when it comes to me and my path and how I learn was, how does an associate, a lawyer, someone in that path break out of that to do something quite different? Yes, I'm in the legal industry, but I'm not practicing, and I haven't in a long time. So I always appreciate those questions. I don't know if I wish I was asked that more, but I enjoy it a lot because a lot of people will hit me up for advice and talk about transitioning out. And I think for lawyers, it's an interesting thing because lawyers are used to sets of rules in many cases. And when you jump into business, or when I only left practice to do marketing at Practical Law Company, there's often no right or wrong. There's trying, and there's taking risks, and there's failing. So I always enjoy that conversation.
And I love that conversation. Obviously, I followed a similar path, but a different path because I actually never practiced. And in many interviews that I've done, because it's an area where I guess I'm interested in, are legal tech entrepreneurs who started in legal and moved over. Nobody I've interviewed yet has moved over to legal training, similar to me, and you actually practiced for 7 years. So let's dive into that. What was that like? Take us through your mindset. Was it accidental? Was it like it happened and you saw that? Was it designed that you knew you wanted to go that route? Take us through how you leave that route when, okay, I'm going to go associate, partner, next 30 years, I'm set, to, okay, why did I go to law school for this?
Yeah. So you're wondering why I left practicing? Is that the question?
First the why, and then the how.
Yeah. So why is interesting. As you said at the start, I worked at Kramer Levin for a bunch of years, and it was a really great firm, is a really great firm, and I enjoyed it. I just knew deep down being a lawyer really wasn't for me, and I knew that early on. I knew it. I knew it from the get-go. I grew up as someone who I always considered myself to be quite creative and someone who liked risks and doing different things. And I went to law school thinking, hey, maybe I'll learn something about the business world and that'll be an interesting skill that I'll have. And I did well in school and I got to the firm and I quickly realized this wasn't what I had in mind. I made it 7 years, but it wasn't really fulfilling me at all. And being fulfilled was important to me. And I think that this idea of what ultimately lended itself to
And
the
you're not
creation
even
of
a
Hotshot.
millennial.
No, not even a millennial, right? Yeah, it's the whole
Sorry.
thing. But I think from my first week at the firm really was the start of what would become Hotshot. I went to law
First
school.
week at the firm.
Yeah, I think the experiences I had at the first week influenced me for the rest of my career.
Tell
I
us.
got to the firm. I did well in law school, top of the class, the whole thing, law review. And then you get to the firm, and I'm putting on an assignment. It said, all right, Ian, we're putting you on a reverse triangular merger, and we're flying you out to the other side. You're going to the general counsel's office, look through the diligence, and just tell us what looks weird.
Week one. This is
Everything
week one.
is something like that.
Okay,
Very,
whatever.
very early on. Yeah, very early on. And I just thought, what are those words? What's a merger? What's a triangular merger? What is diligence and what is weird? And it's just that just never really sat well with me. So this experience of years of really not feeling that confident and knowing what I was doing really just stuck with me. Now, the story of how I left practice is different, but from the get-go, I just thought something about that experience wasn't great. But also just I didn't really love the practice of law so much. I loved many things about it, but I didn't like the churning out of deals. It was I felt a bit lonely. It wasn't all that collaborative. It just wasn't for me for life.
That's super interesting. Obviously, it's a significant investment in law school to do that. When I was at the PDC conference that Hotshot had a booth, and we had a booth, you weren't there though. One of the sessions that I went into was a really good one. It was about what law schools had leadership training for the students. And one of the schools, I can't remember which at this moment, had this great pitch as they talked about what it means to go to law school. And they said, do you know how many of the past presidents of the United States were actually lawyers? Yes.
I couldn't even half.
About 24. Yeah. 20.
Okay.
So it just goes to show you to that point, a lot of lawyers end up in other areas, whether that they intended to or not. And so was there this before you obviously started the firm and you're a couple years in, was there just any moments of what have I done? And I don't know if you went into debt or not into debt, but was there a down moment before you decided to take action on that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I had a good experience at the firm and I met many great people, great mentors. I just knew it wasn't for me. I just knew it. And in terms of moments, I mean, sure, there's the vacations canceled, there's the all-nighters, there's the sleeping at a couch at the corporate printer and back in those days. Talk at bars at 4 a.m. was fun, but it doesn't last all that long. It was just more of a feeling. I thought if I don't do something about this, this
Was
is
there a
going to be the
spark
rest of my life.
that lit the flame that pushed you to move forward?
Absolutely. Yeah. So a really interesting time for me at practice was when I was about a fifth or sixth year associate. The firm I was at, Kramer Levin, was setting up some sort of alliance with a big firm in London. And the managing partner asked me if I would go represent the firm and move to London for a little bit to help establish the relationship with the firm, learn about the UK system of doing things. That changed everything for me. The UK system
So you
is
went.
and was, yeah, I
Oh,
went. I moved to
fantastic.
London. I was married at the time. My wife came with me. It was amazing. That really changed everything because one, it was more of a businessy role. And two, it's where I learned about real training and support. When I saw what they did in the UK market, a light went on, and I thought, this is amazing. This sort of support and structure they have here is mind blowing, and I think this will one day make its way to the States. Sure enough,
Well,
that's what
what
happened.
did you see? Out of curiosity.
Yeah. So what happened was on the first day at the UK firm, which was Burr Leighton Paisner, which is now a merged firm, BCLP. I got the tour of the office. I got the tour of the cafeteria. I got the tour of the photocopy room, et cetera, et cetera. And then someone took me into a room and they said, these are where the PSLs sit, the practice support lawyers, professional support lawyers. And I said, what's that? And they said, oh, these are people that do nothing but maintain training. They keep up to date forms for the lawyers. They do everything so that the lawyers can be efficient. We run training programs all the time, the whole thing, right? It's like what practical law, outsourced practical law, a lot of the firms have those people in house. So that one, I thought, wow, if I had that, that would change things as an associate. Two, the other thing that blew my mind was I asked the associates there how many hours they built, because that's how you measure how busy you'll be or lifestyle of the firm, whatever. So I would ask associates how many hours. He said, we don't know. I don't know. I said, what do you mean you don't know how many hours? Part of the day is training. Part of the day is business development. We go to lunch with colleagues. We do this, we do that, and we bill. It just sounded like such a balanced, sensible
Yeah.
approach.
Wow.
And
Okay.
then that stuck with me. So I moved back to the States, went back to the firm, and my mindset was changed. I wanted to implement this change. I wanted to bring it to the States.
So so it seems like Practical Law Company was the perfect company for you to go to. How did that opportunity happen?
That happened because when I came back to the States, I practiced for about another year, but my mind was back with what I witnessed in the UK. So I had pitched to my firm at the time, hey, there's this thing called know-how and professional support, and I would like to do this for the firm, but it wasn't a thing then here.
Good for you,
So
though. Good for you.
I tried. And then I just was starting to look for jobs. And I saw like a want ad or whatever, a recruiting firm had an ad for UK legal publisher looking to set up shop in the US and looking for their first hires. I didn't know at the time that was Practical Law Company. And make a lot of long stories short, I was at a small firm at the time. I left Kramer to try a smaller firm. And I met Practical Law Company. I knew what they were doing, and the rest is history, really. We were 5 or 6 of us in a little Vija space, hired to bring Practical Law to the US, because that was exactly what I saw in the UK that I wanted to be a part of.
I'm going to be honest. I don't truly know the Practical Law story, except from different parts in here and there. I know they had a big exit to Thomson Reuters. I
Yeah.
know they ended up, and I would love just if you could quickly, because I'm sure a lot of people don't know the story, because I'm learning now. I didn't realize when you started there, it was just 5 of you in a Regus office.
Yeah, something like that.
Maybe start with the end in mind. How big was it when they sold to Thomson Reuters, and what did they sell for? And then just to give like the hook, and then let's go backwards.
It's a huge exit. I don't really feel comfortable sharing
Oh,
the
I didn't
numbers
know.
on it, so it was never
I thought it was
disclosed.
public.
No, no, it was never made public.
My
It was
apologies.
no, don't be sorry. It was a very large exit. We grew it to be quite large in the US, but we were the US expansion team. Practical Law Company was very well established, was the market leader in the UK for years and years before it was brought to the US. A guy named Jeroen Plink helped bring it over to the US, that we worked for him. But that's an interesting origin story too, is you don't know much about it. That company was started by 2 guys, Chris Millerchip and Robert Dow. They were junior associates at Slaughter and May, and just thought, there's got to be a better way to train up people and to explain these deals and what's happening and have model forms and documents. And they just left their jobs as junior lawyers to start a magazine. And they would interview people that did deals around London and explain the deal mechanics and run around London and hand out issues to people.
No
And they put
way.
things on CD-ROMs. And then the internet came and Practical Law blew up. And it was a hugely successful company in the UK. And then a team came over to the US hired me and a bunch of other people to build it in the States. And that's what we did. I joined Practical Law as one of the first editors writing content. And in my interview, I wouldn't shut up about marketing and how to bring it to the States. And the founder said, "That's great. We need you to write content, but we'll talk about the business side later." And I just wouldn't shut up about it. So finally, in the States, we started growing and we needed a head of marketing. And I just put my hat in the ring because I said, "Hey, I've lived this. I've been the clueless first year. I know the need inside out. I may not have done marketing, but if you take a chance on me, I think I could do this." And so they did. They took a chance on me, and I shifted from being an editor, writer, lawyer to forward facing marketing, biz
I didn't
dev,
know
that
that
whole
either.
thing. Yeah,
So what
yeah.
are you doing marketing biz dev there?
Almost the whole time I was there. I think within a year I switched over. So 5, 6 years or something. And
And
ended up
how about this?
hiring a
How many
huge team.
people, you started at 5, how many people were in the US office when it sold?
Oh boy, we were five-ish, maybe 10, a couple hundred at least. I think it was pretty big. We had multiple floors in Midtown.
And the guy, if what is the tagline for what Practical Law was doing in the US market?
Know-how, what became a common term, know-how, which is model forms. They have amazing standard documents and templates and checklists and practice tools for lawyers. Really, it's a practice tool for lawyer across all different practice areas. So we were writing a standard form of purchase agreement or documents for an IPO or whatever with explainer notes.
Got it.
And it took off. When we launched it, it was before the economy had turned, right? It was when things were going good. And we were running around the country to partners saying, "Hey, we have this resource. It's an efficiency tool. It saves people time." And we got left out of the room in the beginning.
That's fascinating because
Yeah.
I assume by the time you were done, most am law firms were using it in some form. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what is there things that you learned in trying to market Practical Law that you were able to take with you to Hotshot?
Absolutely. It's in our DNA. A lot of our investors and people are former Practical Law people. I think what we took with us, one, an absolute focus on the highest quality content. That's number one. And number two, it took us a while to break through with Practical Law, but the foundational concept is there's a level of information everyone needs to know that's not firm specific. There's a generic level, and it's a complete waste of time for firms to create the same stuff, right? It would make no sense for every firm to have their own standard set of board minutes or a share purchase agreement. It's a special sauce on top of it adds value. So once we got people to accept that at Practical Law, Hotshot's similar with education and training, right? There's just information everyone needs. And a training session on what is due diligence, that's not that unique, but how you do it at your firm is.
That reminds me of my recent interview with Skillburst's founder. Why am I blanking out his name? Oh my God. Thank
Steve
you, Steve
Gluckman.
Gluckman. I knew it. It's just a senior moment where they were building all these custom courses. And there's only so many different ways you can do 14 different time management courses for a law firm. And then they
Right.
realize 80% of the course should be the same. And then the 20% we can customize for the lawyers in the law firm, which we'll get to because it reminds me of what you're doing right now, which is the business in the box, the M&A in the box series, which is
Yeah.
similar. And we'll get to that, but I just want to close the loop on this entrepreneur journey that you started, which is so exciting. How to take us through the origin story from, I assume, Practical Law sold to Thomson Reuters, and that's when you
Yep.
started thinking about what's next?
Yeah. So it was really fun being a part of that deal. I was an M&A lawyer working on deals, just doing the papers and then have a nice day. But it was fascinating to be part of an acquisition. I never been through one before. So I helped with the transition to Thomson Reuters. I joined TR for a year, bringing the Practical Law brand aboard and being integrated into the larger marketing team, which was really cool and fun. Lots of trips to Eagan, Minnesota. That was the headquarters then. And we'll circle back to Chris because Chris is the other critical part of the story, as is our whole team. We're a small band of people super into this mission. Chris and I were a real team at Practical Law Company. And about a year after the acquisition, on lots of business trips, we just over beers late at night. What's your long-term goal? I don't know. Is huge company life for you? Not sure. I always had this idea of starting a company. If not now, when? And that idle talk turned into, let's do it. Let's give it a shot. So I guess I have this pattern of quitting really high paying good jobs to just completely go for it. I have a very understanding wife. About a year, the origin story is a year after the acquisition, we gave our notice, didn't know what we'd be doing. We quit and just did a lot of research, and for lots of reasons settled on legal education and training. We weren't sure if we'd be running around the country doing weekend seminars on M&A, what we'd be doing. But, and I can goof on the industry because I'm part of it. But if you really want to look at the most innovative things, it's usually not within the legal industry where you look. So we were looking at EdTech. We were looking at lynda.com, which is now LinkedIn Learning. We're looking at Duolingo, Coursera, and this concept of online digital learning, just in time, whatever, was exploding. And we just thought there's an opportunity.
Masterclass, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we just thought, yeah, there's an opportunity here. And also the economy was changing at that time. Clients were pushing back on paying for baby lawyers. Junior lawyers were coming to firms saying, hey, I grew up on Khan Academy. Where is that for me at work?
So how did you tell us about if you can remember your first client that you got?
Gosh, yeah. Even before that, Chris and I spent a year doing market research, talking to firms all over the country about this idea of short bite-sized videos. And we collected all this research and everyone said, yeah, great idea. And then at the end of it, Chris and I looked at each other and literally said, how do we make videos? Like this, there's a need. We have literally no idea how to make the videos.
Love it.
So yeah, so we went to B&H camera, right? B&H Photoshop, whatever it's called, bought a camera and thought if we can make one video, even if it's crappy, we could probably learn to make really good ones. Before we had a customer, we had to make a sample video and show that, which we did. And we went to, gosh, I remember going to Wilson Sonsini to show our little video we made in Chris's living room. And they said, yep, this is great, but make a lot more and make them better. And it just went from there. And we just started hiring people that knew a heck of a lot more than us and just stayed true to the quality, short, practical. And that was it.
So I wasn't in the office that day, but around that time, I assume it was around 2012, 13, I heard from our COO, oh, these guys from Hotshot came by and I don't know, I think before we had a studio, maybe we had a studio already in our office to see how we
had it.
Yeah, we had the studio. I don't know if you were there. And
Chris, that was Chris.
And I don't know, it was just I was like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. And then they showed me this stuff. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. So that was probably maybe that was right before or after you went to B&H, because that's where we get all our equipment too. So it's
probably
cool.
After.
It's cool to put that all together. And I love that the humbleness of you have this idea, but now how are we going to create the video? And of course, what you did, which was really interesting and different and the opposite of what a traditional CLE course is, you ended up hiring professional actors. You created scripts. You worked and you didn't focus on CLE from day one. We'll come to that. You just wanted to create training and these bite-sized clips. And you did that. And I think there was an article you wrote or about you, or it was maybe about Masterclass, and you talked about it. I think it was something similar. But I remember when I was looking into Masterclass and there was an article they wrote, the first video that they did for a class, it was terrible. It was quality. And then they ended up making what the normal videos were. And when he said is, yeah, a normal class costs us $700,000 because they're movies. Yours obviously weren't there, but they were definitely production value. What was that? How was that experience in the beginning? Because 1 is content, 2 is production quality, 3 is sales and marketing, and 4 is building your own platform. So just obviously I went through a lot of those different phases, but how did it go for you? And you weren't selling CLE. What was the hardest thing you needed to learn, or what was the areas that
it's a good question. Gosh, I think having done all of it at the same time and just make it happen while we were doing it, I'd say that was pretty hard. Chris had deep business experience and deep sales experience, and I had marketing and general experience from practical law. Without that experience and living at the firm, I wouldn't have been able to do Hotshot. I think it was more the technical stuff that was harder to figure out and give it our best shot.
Yeah.
There was no playbook, just figure it out and get feedback from the market and hope we got it right. Basically.
Out of curiosity, what is your role today and what is Chris's role?
Yeah, and we have a small team. We're only about a dozen people. We have a lot of
Yeah.
contractors, but we all do
Yeah,
a lot of different things. Those circles
for sure.
overlap. Chris, Chris formally oversees sales and the business ends of things, finance, sales, and he's heavily involved in the product side of things. So on the technology side, product sales, finance, all that stuff. I formally look after the content team and marketing.
Got it.
So that's formally, we're all involved in
Yeah, everyone
everything.
does a
And
little bit
then,
of everything.
yeah, and then we have an amazing team that they're functionally heads of all the different things that we do.
I think we've hit the time in the interview where we're actually going to talk substance about learning and growth, and specifically where you see things going in the legal space right now. We're in 2025. There's a really strong component, and you guys have really taken the forefront on AI and training. You've also built something called Business in the Box series. And I just want to get a sense. And then, of course, there's things that me and you probably both see on the horizon, like how is obviously AI going to change what we do? Just as an example, avatars, the qualities are getting so good that it's, if not there yet, it's almost there to be as good as the studio quality that you have an actor and a voiceover and a transcript, where why do all that when you can just do that instantly? So there's a lot in here, what I said. So
Yeah.
pick your path and then we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. And look, you and Lawline and your company is a company, a path I admire. So I'd like to ask you all those same questions, and maybe we'll flip it.
And let's make it a conversation for sure.
Yeah.
Let's call this the conversational part about like where me and legal education going, education as a whole, and like what's interesting right now.
Yeah, sure. As you said, there's lots to unpack from what you said. And I'll take the first bit on what's happening with education and training, I think, because of AI, because I think that's one of the most pressing things we're facing now, and the thing we're having the most conversations with law firms about. The avatars being great, for sure, it's going to bring costs down, and we're leaning into all that stuff, but that'll just be a tool of how to deliver content. What we're seeing now, and what I think I'm most excited about, is what Gen AI is doing to the role of the lawyer and the role of the associate in particular. Because what's happening is that right now it's the forward-looking firms, but pretty soon it'll be all firms, are using Gen AI to do the lower level tasks that associates once did. So clients won't be paying for the juniors to slog due diligence. Associates aren't going to get the reps in that they used to. They're not going to learn that way anymore. So the role is evolving and it's being pushed up, which I think is a good thing. But firms are now scrambling. They're saying it's an economic imperative that we train up our associates and get them much more advanced, much earlier on in their careers. And how do we do that? So where training used to be nice to have, and it's certainly important, now it's critical. And we're seeing conversations with C-suites, practice heads about, shoot, how do we effectively upskill our associates and also widen their knowledge set? We just came out with this big white paper based on our work with half the AmLaw 100s about how firms are rethinking training. And we're seeing an expanded curriculum, much more in the business side of skills, much more professional skills, and much higher, more advanced legal substantive skills. And they just don't come out of law school with that. So it's really fascinating to see what's happening. And that's why we created our M&A simulation. You called it the business series in a box, but it's...
Is that one, is it not called Business in a Box?
No, it's a simulation. Well, whatever, we'll call it that. But that's just one example, because firms are saying...
How about this? Let me see if I can, what you've told me about it is, and let me just pause that for 1 second, because one of the things that you said was interesting, how Gen AI is changing what associates and new lawyers are doing. And I had a conversation with Evan Shankman. You know, Evan, was the head of innovation and education at I'm blanking on the firm's name. Do you know the firm off the top of your head? If not, it's okay. It'll hit me.
Is he a Fisher?
Yes, thank you. And it was on Lawyers Who Learn. I can only remember so much in my head.
Oh, I hear you. Me too. I'm amazed I'm remembering these things.
Names I'm not good at, but I remember the substance of what he said. And what I remember, because I was with him, actually sitting near him, and I didn't know him at the time, at the Legal Tech Fund Summit when Richard Susskind was speaking. I don't know if you were in that room. And what Richard Susskind was saying is, what AI is going to do, it's going to change what clients are willing to pay for new attorneys, young attorneys to do, because they know Gen AI can do it, but the partners, the ones with the experience, they're the ones who will keep being able to raise their rates. And so when I was asking Evan about this at his firm, I'm like, are clients seeing the savings? Is that the conversation? So, no, that's not the conversation. I'm like, oh, because that's all I'm thinking. So what our pitch is to lawyers and to our clients, to corporate counsel, when we go to them, is we are going to make, we're going to be a better lawyer and a better law firm for you to get you better results. And that's what they care about. It's not, it generally, yeah, maybe that saves not just hours, maybe it saves millions or hundreds of millions of dollars, or changes things. And I thought that was a really, things shifted for me in my mind, because up until that moment, all I was thinking about how Gen AI is going to save the corporate clients money or somebody money. Yes, that is part of it, but it's more about how to make somebody work on better things, better serve the clients. And both sides are using it now. So
That's right.
It's table stakes to some degree.
100%, 100%. It used to be, okay, first and second years. I always go to M&A examples because I was an M&A lawyer, but you could use this example in any area. Instead of slogging through diligence for weeks on end to just create this table that summarizes the provisions. Fine. Tech is doing that now in 2 seconds. What the first years will be able to do in these sorts of programs we're working on with firms is understand the outputs of the tech, right? Understand the implication of it, being able to communicate to the client. Well, here's the impact on the deal structure. This is what it means. Let's have a conversation about it. How this impacts your industry. It's much more advanced stuff. I didn't go to law school to slog through that work. So I completely agree with that, with what he said. And that's the sort of programs we're seeing come into place now.
The other thing, a little different than this, but I was talking to John, I interviewed John Diddy he's a corporate counsel at Zendesk right now. And he was saying one of the things that was transformative for him was when he actually took his desk and moved it next to the developers, because they're the ones who are building the product. And it was partly the understanding of like how AI is transforming things, but it's understanding how it's actually affecting your clients as well. So he needed to understand what they were doing, because there's two sides of AI. It's like how it's going to make it more efficient for the lawyers and the law firms, but also all their clients are now going to be using it in some different ways. And how are they going to be able to advise them? So how do you, when you think about training, do you see it as like 50-50, like 50-50, we need to educate them how to better serve their clients, and then 50% we need to help them to better serve themselves and how to use the tools? Or are you more focused on one area?
No, both. Absolutely both. Absolutely both. We're focused on the whole thing. One of our more popular things now is our Gen AI series on training lawyers all about it. And we're trying to meet people where they are, right? We're working on more advanced materials, experiential programs that take people to the next level. But we still have so many people in law firms that have never touched ChatGPT before, and they need training too. It's an effort, and we're working on all those different levels and all the lawyering skills. So we're trying to train the lawyer up on the tech itself and best use of it, and then up the knowledge on the actual substantive skills. And again, bringing back in the business knowledge and professional skills and communication skills, all those things.
So going back to not business in the box,
The simulation.
The simulation, it goes to videos can only take you so far. And so you guys have developed a way to take the video, but to build on top of that for your clients. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. We're greatly influenced by our customers and what they're doing and what they're asking for and the trends that we see in the market. We do a lot of work with Goodwin. We're very fortunate. We do a lot of work with Goodwin. And Goodwin recently won the Financial Times Award for innovation in skills and people training for their first year program that they have. What Goodwin is now doing, this will get to simulation. I'll try not to ramble on. What they've done is they built full mock transactions for their first years, litigation, corporate. So for the first 8 to 10 weeks of a first year's experience at Goodwin, they're not on client matters at all. They are doing mock deals with Goodwin lawyers running them, with PD teams involved, mock deal documents, hypothetical companies, the whole thing. Then they come out of that much more experienced than they would have been had it been from day one. Okay, just go figure it out on your own. So what's critical about that is it's building the relationships with the lawyers. The lawyers are learning the Goodwin way of doing things. The firm is training the lawyers themselves, and they have them all together, and it's very efficient. And at the end of that, they're much more advanced than they would have been. So not every firm has the resources or time to do that internally. So we created a virtual, basically a simulated deal. We created a whole bunch of assignments. And the critical part is the firms run it. So we built a hypothetical company, we built due diligence materials, sample purchase agreements, work assignments, answer keys, templates for the partners to use to roll these things out and understand what to do. So it's here you
Let's
go.
take, yeah. So if anyone's been in due diligence, what do you call it? A room looks like, what is it called?
Yeah, the data room.
Data room.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it has all these documents. So you, based on your experiences and what's out there, just create fake scenarios and put them in the data room. Do you have many different types of data rooms, or is it essentially just like one?
So what we did is we built 5 different assignments for the different
Got it.
things
Got
an
it.
associate does in a deal. We have one focused on due diligence, which is review the materials, fill out a template, write a red flags email to the partner. We have all the materials. We have one on, hey, now the company, they bought a rep and warranty insurance policy, mark up a purchase agreement to reflect that now they have rep and warranty insurance. We have ones on great disclosure schedules. So each one has everything you would need to run that deal. So we have things for juniors, for mid-levels, for summers, depending on what the firm wants to run.
How hard was this to build? Because in one hand, I can say very hard. On the other hand, I'm like, maybe it's not that hard because it's just, there's different scenarios and it's just like getting documents. So did it fit into just like the flywheel that you already have and it was easy to do?
No, it was harder than it would seem. You're right. Look, you can go create sample contracts for someone to review, and you could stick in some Easter eggs and problems for them to find. Having it all connected, being the same story, but also the teaching and the training is so important to us. So we're not just giving you some assignments and saying, go for it and good luck. We created full answer key videos so that if the review sessions with the partner don't cover everything, associates can learn absolutely everything they should have done. All the planning materials that go into it. Look, it's not impossible.
Totally.
It took a while, and we had about 10 firms pilot it last year on our first assignment.
And I think when we were discussing this originally, you were saying, and this is what reminded me from Skillverse, what's great about this is they can take this, and you mentioned Goodwin, and then they can say, here's the Goodwin way of doing this. And so is there blank spaces throughout to do that? Or just here's what it is, you can add whatever you want on top of it?
Yeah, so the way we set it up is there's a portion where the associate does the work, and then there's the review session where the senior lawyers at the firm review it with them, and we have all sorts of prompts and instructions for them to bring in the firm way of doing things, bring in some more stories, talk about how this happens in your practice, et cetera, et cetera. So we weave that throughout the whole thing. To us, that's a really important part.
We've been talking a lot about AmLaw 100 firms, 200 firms. Can this be like this simulations, like how big do you want to get here? And because to me, I'm like, this is what is needed, right? This is the kind of thing that's there. There's mid-sized firms or small firms. There's lots of different, because this is actually more what lynda.com was. They were not just videos. I don't know if you ever used any of their courses back in the day, but it was simulation. It was like 15 different materials to go through it. It wasn't just videos. So how big do you want to get it, and how deep, besides the AmLaw, besides the top 600 law firms, those are the ones that have what, 100 or more attorneys? Do you think this is a small to mid-sized market opportunity?
Definitely. We have mid-sized firms using it now because they don't have PD teams. So for them, it's even more compelling. They just don't have the resources. It's been very popular, this program, and now we're working on other practice areas. We're going to be working on one for Gen AI. So we see this as a pretty strong area for all the different sites. Look, very small firm, probably not, right? A firm that has hardly any juniors, but mid-size for sure.
Awesome. What questions do you have for me?
What do you think?
I put you on the hot seat, so make me sweat.
Yeah. Where do you see things heading, and how is that impacting what you guys are doing at Lawline?
Let me first be open and upfront. Like, I never practiced like you did, and I don't have the substantive experience, and I don't want to pretend that I do, but I've always been interested in one thing: lifelong learning, creating a better product, facilitating the knowledge share between experts and individuals who are attorneys, and creating a platform that makes it super easy for those to consume it. And that's been my obsession. I'm also obsessed, like many people, with what's happening with AI and the opportunities and what's going on with that. So just as an aside, it's hard for me to say, I just don't want to speak out of turn and be like, here's what I think is going to happen with these law firms, but I'm learning. But it's obvious to everybody there's a need. So we have about right now 35 or so people, and still tons of contractors in other areas. And we have about a 6-person learning solutions team, all lawyers who work with attorneys to create content. And it's a different model than you. It's more the traditional CLE model where we don't design a course from scratch and put it out there. We work directly with them and figure out what works. But with that, we've focused over the past 12, 14, 18 months on creating really competent learning paths for AI. And we actually launched an AI learning hub that kind of puts all the learning paths together. These learning paths are the most popular on our site right now. They're getting consumed, and we're getting requests for more. And I'm starting to look back, guys, the stuff that we created 14 months ago, is that still good? And that this is the one area that we're doing. And you made a path towards, okay, your attorneys were asking for CLE credit because they were doing this. And I'm always seeking a path. How can we give value beyond CLE? And there's two areas. So that's where we see in one area that we are, like, our strength and who we are is leadership. And so we just launched, actually, we're launching our first pilot program in June. It's a Train the Trainer series that we're training not the lawyers, we're training the staff, the professionals, the PD people, the non-attorneys, on not only training them, it's a 4-part cohort, 4 different sessions on here's 4 different ways for training and doing for yourself internally, but then we're also giving them the tools and the guidance to use that to help train their attorneys on the way it works for them. Because what we started seeing in the guidance that we were getting, because we're like, we want to train the attorneys, we put it out there. Attorneys don't have time to we're like, it needs to be 60 minutes. And when they were saying this attorney can only do 25 minutes max. And so we thought it was just better when we were talking to them. We're like, we need this training because a lot of them are overworked, undertrained, and all the focus goes to the attorneys, not to the team. And so that to me is interesting, and it fits to who we are, because while we have many attorneys at Lawline, we're mostly non-attorneys, and we've been doing this. By the way, this came because we had a emerging leaders program at Lawline. And while we're only a 35-person company, we run ourselves like we could be a 500-person company. We just haven't figured out how to grow fast enough because we're a learning company. We get the best coaches, the best trainers, the best books, and we've combined that all together. So that's something that's interesting to me. Where I would like to get it, though, is because right now the way we're doing it is very hands-on. Like, we're actually doing coaching. Can we make it where it's train the trainer so it can go mass scale? I don't know that, but first we're going to do a couple pilots to see how it is. So that's separate from AI, but something I'm excited about that we're doing right now.
No, that's so awesome. And that backs up something we're seeing too, which is much more focused on staff training, not just lawyers,
good.
and especially with AI, because it impacts everybody and everyone could be more efficient through it. I think that's great.
Yeah. So that's something exciting. And the second thing, we've been talking about it for a year, but we've shifted a little bit, and based on essentially RFPs that came to us from current clients or potential clients, was we talked about doing accreditation services that we're helping firms and organizations do that. And so that grew fast. That is the fastest that we've never really had a product beyond our core product that actually expanded. This went beyond 6 figures very quickly. But there's a lot of work involved to this. And so we said, what is our flywheel? What do we do best? And what we're launching is what we're calling the CLE Studio. And the CLE Studio main focus is to be a platform for accredited law firms, organizations, and providers who already have accreditation, but need what we see in the market. They're taping together 6 different products like Micron or Latera, like all different things, and Zoom and this. And we think we have a better, easier way, not only to help them put together their application. By the way, this is what we built for ourselves. It's just like any story. What you build, you think it can go out there to the market. That is actually, we'll see, but I think I'm going to be speaking about it at the Legal Tech Fund Summit in November and sharing what we're doing there. And that is something that's been really a 15-year love of mine. I want to give, I think we've built one of the best products out there, and I want to give the tools that we have to firms and organizations to do that. And then in the middle, we have something called a concierge product, which is where we're doing more of the work right now. Like, let's say you wanted to accredit some of your content, we can do that for you. We will be essentially using our own CLE studio to manage it, but it also is helping us to do that. One of the things I've learned, and I'll stop here. Again, it's fun to talk about your own stuff, but even just all my lawyers who learn interviews, from Skill Burst to InfoDash to, oh my God, so many more, a couple more, that whenever they launch a new product, even speaking to you right now, you do it. And even when I talk to Evan Shankman, you do it with law firm partners to be your beta. If you try to build something without actual clients, you're building things that nobody might want to use and might never be practical. And Evan actually was saying with Fisher, in the past, since they were the first ones to use Copilot, and they gave a ton of feedback to Casetext back then. And since then, they've been essentially they're the beta users of 12 different legal tech companies, and they love that process. So is that how
that's amazing.
So
that's
that was
amazing.
A lot for
that's
one
amazing.
question, but it's interesting.
And I think it's what you've built is incredible, and I keep sending people your way for the accreditation service.
Yes, I much appreciated. Look, we're not trying to compete directly with what the ABA is doing, because it's not what, to be honest, what I want to do. I think they let them do that market. We either want to focus on, if you're already a credit provider, we can give you a better platform, or if you're the right partner, we can do it for you in terms of what we do. I don't know if I'm looking to do exactly the way they're doing it, because I'm trying to build something at scale and something that can serve a greater market. And there's been a dream, and it still might be a dream, but you got to keep trying to build a platform. Phase one won't be private label, but imagine a private label Lawline that can do soup to nuts for them. So that's the dream. That's what we're trying to do. And that brings us to the end of the hour.
David, thank you again for having me.
No,
it's a treat, and I admire you and your company greatly.
Look, and what I love about this, and I think what me and you and many others in the industry have done, and that's what Aclia is and other organizations is, I love talking shop with people that there's some people I compete much more directly with than you that I talk shop with. And then there's those who compete because it's just, how many people can you talk to about legal training, and especially CLE, and they actually can?
Not too many.
Yeah. And so thank you for that. And anybody who made it this far,
thank you.
But it will be in the PDF, and there'll be a lot of nuggets that you shared. So I will see you soon. I know that for sure. And we'll continue this conversation through the interwebs, through LinkedIn, and in person.
Sounds amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian.